Okay, we're going to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff to have a really cool review for you guys, or a preview, if you will, from the brand Clemence watches. Now, they are members of the British Watch and Clock Makers Alliance. They were originally founded by Tom Clemence, an independent brand based in Edinburgh, Scotland, and their watches are assembled and designed in Britain using parts manufactured by their skilled partners around the world. In terms of the type of watch, I'd consider this an everyday watch. Some key characteristics of design: when you're looking for something that is versatile enough to wear every day, of course you're just going to want that versatile blend of sporty and dressy attributes. This is a prototype of their Munro in the pitch black colorway, and this really just is meant to capture the essence of a true field watch, a classic redefined, which has been a very popular genre these days. I mean, we've seen stuff where field watches have really become these everyday adventure watches, but it is nice to see something with a more restrained design that still keeps it quite versatile in terms of everyday wear. And you don't necessarily need to wear a vintage olive drab jacket to consider this going along with the field watch attire. Like, this is going to be quite versatile just for everyday wear, regardless of kind of the outfit or the occasion, which I think is great. This is going to go for $708.45 direct on bracelet in terms of pre-order, and the first 300 are estimated for delivery within March of 2024, with the second batch around May of 2024. And this thing is cool, and some of you are noticing it probably looks like some watches you've seen on my channel before that we're also trying to fit into kind of that everyday category. And I actually have two favorites that I'll be doing a quick comparison with, because I think this really captures a beautiful happy medium between the two. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, now for, of course, the big watch aficionados that are watching, especially the micro brand connoisseurs, some of you are noticing that this has such a really beautiful and still quite distinct design aesthetic. Like, I don't think that they were necessarily inspired by these two other watches, but I like the idea that this strikes somewhere within a median between the two design aesthetics. That being one, a very classic Traska Summiteer, guys. Oh yeah, that is a good looking watch. Still quite simplistic though, right? Without a lot of necessarily complexity. A lot of it has to do with just refinement and tying in to those classic lines. Whereas here you're going to see a nice step up in terms of some of that complexity, in terms of those extra bevelings and those extra details. My goodness, look at the beveling on this bracelet. This had to cost them a lot to manufacture. They even have a hey, look at that, toolless micro adjusting clasp, reminiscent of Christopher Ward, which is also a member of that British Watch and Clock Makers Alliance. So very cool to see that technology shared. And then when you look at the dial versus these two, definitely, hey, you're getting now a little bit of a dressier side by having everything be applied. And instead of it being just applied loom blocks, here you're going to get applied with those high polished surrounds, which, hey, check that out. Look at that. The number 6, the number 12, they look a bit familiar. The Halios Universa, also more complex in terms of, hey, having those extra facets and lines and angles. I just love that. Again, these are two watches that are pretty hard to get these days. Small batches in terms of their releases, and you kind of miss out when you miss out. And if you don't get it when they're released, you miss it. Same thing goes for here. If you don't get these when they're released, and you even have something, okay, hey, you got a toolless micro clasp. And again, there's full reviews for each of these watches, but again, I love that this just strikes a very happy median between, I think not everybody who likes this watch will like this watch, but both people, I think if you like either of these watches, you'll also really enjoy this one, which I think is cool. And this is a new watch. So the nice thing is that it's, ooh, man, look at the way the light just plays off of this beautiful box dome sapphire. All right, let's get into the details of this, guys. We've had enough of the quick comparison. So the Munro, I keep wanting to say Murano. It's not a Murano. That's a Nissan SUV. The Munro, this again is pretty outstanding. So 37.5 millimeters in diameter, and I do have a larger wrist, but I will say this 37.5 really, they do a really great job of balancing out the proportions so that it's still going to fit a larger wrist well. And of course, for smaller wrists, you're going to still enjoy it because it only has a 9.8 millimeter thinness, guys. Check that out. And that is with that box dome, which they very smartly kept in check, right? It's not protruding too much. It's very slight, but you're still getting a lot of the beautiful play. And look at that, there's that little hint of distortion and then color play with that AR coating on the opposite end. There's just a lot to like there. So when you look at that silhouette, very nice. And then check this out, guys. Lug to lug, only 45 millimeters. So for a small wrist with, again, that female end link, that is very, very nice to see. This also, one thing to mention about this box sapphire, it has 8 layers of inner AR coating, guys. So this is going to help render that beautiful vertically brushed dial with the engraving for a very, subtle sector situation there within those crosshairs, breaking it up into 4 quadrants. I think that list looks really, really outstanding, and you're going to be able to see it. It's going to be quite legible. The crown is a screw down crown, signed and beautifully finished there with multiple finishings, as you can see. And of course, you even got my thumbprint on there. But also, as you're looking at that, look at that chamfer above and the nice undercut below. So very cool. Let me even give it a quick wipe off camera here just to really accentuate how nicely done this piece is. And I'll even give it a little dust off. And just so you guys can see, look at the sharp transitions. And this is a pre-production prototype, so I can only imagine that the production variations are going to be even sharper. This is a cool one, guys. I'm very excited. So, although you can't see it because of this solid case back, which many of you will appreciate because that helps with the thinness, you're going to have a Miyota 9039, which is a no date specific movement, which means no ghost pound position. Another outstanding thing. Now, in terms of that dial, that's where I think they did really good in terms of balancing something original, something sedate, and also quite handsome and balanced, right? It does have a very nice symmetry to the layout, especially in this no date configuration. So, vertically brushed black dial. You get applied indices, polished hands, 10 layers of Super Luminova grade A BGW9 lume. So this is going to be quite a little torch there. Again, a little bit of a bonus to your standard field watch, which don't necessarily need to even have a lume, let alone a lot of lume. And then it's going to have 150 meters of water resistance, which is such a sweet spot for me. I like that. It's a little bit more than 100. It's less than 200. It's not a diver. I feel like 150 tells you 2 things. It tells you that they wanted to do more, and also that they are built to a tighter tolerance. And, that is nice when you do have that little bit. If you can have a watch this thin, that's 150 meters of water resistance, you just got to be impressed. And it helps give you that warm and fuzzy, even though Clemence isn't some legacy brand that's been around forever. The nice thing is you can feel very, very confident in that build quality because of that extra 50 meters of guaranteed water resistance. So I think that's great. Now, the lugs here are fantastic, 20 millimeters, so great strap monster. You're even getting quick release spring bars and drilled lugs, so whether you're pulling off this bracelet or putting on anything else, thanks to those pierced lugs, you're going to be able to swap out very easily, which is very nice. This bracelet is gorgeous. I mean, it wasn't too long ago when a bracelet like this would be unheard of under a couple $1,000, but now thanks to modern technology and just factories being more and more competitive with each other because of the different economies that all support micro brand production, man, I'm sure this was a much higher cost option with the factories when they said, hey, I want it to be beautifully brushed with real thick, luxurious bevels. My gosh, that just jumps out at me. 20 millimeters tapering down to 16 millimeters, milled push button clasp, and even the push buttons are beautifully milled. And of course, you're going to get that nice high polished chamfer there for a nice transition. And then it ties in to, of course, the beautiful high polished beveling that goes all the way through, milled folding section. And again, nice on the fly, toolless micro adjust. And even you can consider this a ratcheting micro adjust because you can push it in without pulling the trigger. It just can't come out without pulling it out. So very, very nice. So very impressed with this piece, guys, as you can tell. And even in this more sedate black dial variation, it just has a lot that pops. They do have a white dial variation that's coming out too that I was really, really keen on. I don't know if I was to choose, it would probably be between those two. Actually, you know what? All the colorways look pretty awesome. But for me, in terms of like wearability, I feel like the black or the white definitely are going to be the kind of standouts. And then niche supporters, man, there's also some really cool variants, which we'll talk about later in the video. But right now, let's actually get this piece on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, surprisingly, this 37.5 wears just about perfectly. I'm blown away with how they worked these proportions. Of course, if I do get my wrist a bit too close to the camera, it's going to look oversized. There's going to be some perspective distortion. So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low and then just tighten up the frame here so we can get a more detailed look, but just keeping within a truer aspect ratio so you can see how well centered this is on the wrist. And again, it just ties into a very nice classic size for an everyday watch. Not oversized, not undersized, just right. And definitely more within that traditional or vintage vein in terms of the scale on my wrist. So, and I do have a larger wrist at 7.5 inches, but I will say it is a rounder wrist, as you can see, so it's not like I have some big flat wrist that just accommodates to every large watch. And you can see this isn't a very large watch, but it still looks quite good. Matter of fact, we're going to take advantage of this quick toolless micro adjust clasp. I'm going to give it one little clip out there, and there you have it. Now it's fitting a little bit more comfy. So guys, look at that. Look at how flat it lays. A lot of light play when it comes to the facets, the bevels, that beautiful hairline brushing. I mean, it's definitely done to a higher level. And I know their team, again, it looks like they just, were checking all the boxes with their factories in terms of just getting the top end pieces. And I'm blown away that this is going to be a $700 watch and it's available for pre-order. Again, it's tough to get some of these other watches, no matter how desirable they are. I should say, especially when they're very desirable, because pre-orders, not everybody likes to do that. Not every brand wants to sit on people's money and make them wait. You know, they would rather release the watch and, they invest in the pieces and all that. But here, the nice thing is you get a chance, you get your foot in the door to get a hold of something like this and reserve your space, your slot for your own personal preference of such an outstanding piece. Guys, the finish on here, wow, I am impressed. This feels like it should be $1,200, $1,500, and I'd be okay with that. Like if it probably, there's a lot of people that say, we'll need the Swiss movement, let's put an SW300 in it. Sure, let's do that and make it more expensive. The fit and finish would definitely hold up with a more expensive place for it to be finished and manufactured. That maybe might be more glamorous than Edinburgh, Scotland. But my gosh, this is just a looker, guys. I'm just taken by it. So with that said, let's actually get this piece off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here, guys. Yes! look at that loom. That is nuclear. I'm very impressed. And again, do they have to do this? No, they don't have to do the fancy bevels. They don't have to do the upgraded finishes. They don't need a toolless micro adjust clasp. You know, they don't need a bevel underneath and on top. You know, there's just, they didn't need to do any of that, but they're just working hard to deliver something that I personally think would, one, excite them, and of course, hopefully excite you guys and resonate with you. And for me, as being a relatively jaded watch enthusiast slash reviewer on YouTube who's had, you know, a couple hundred watches, you know, I don't even want to count. I'm going to actually offload a bunch of them soon, but as somebody that just has seen a lot and experienced a lot, I have to say that I'm very impressed with this piece. And one thing I always like to work in, of course, is a bit of low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. To maybe include a bit of harsh lighting, which could expose any types of production defects. I mean, this is a pre-production prototype after all, and my goodness, guys, it's holding up. Look at that fit and finish. And I don't even know how many other reviewers have had this thing circulate through their hands, whether they be doing, you know, print or video, photography, whatever it may be. This thing is just holding up. Look at how deep and dark those bevels on those bracelet links are reflecting back, or I should say reflecting the darkness back at you, while the light just uniformly glides across that higher level of brushing. Very cool. And then the dial, check that out. With that flat brush, you do get additional light play, but it's more on and off, right? So it's here and then it's off. It's here and then it's off. It's not going to be like a sunray dial where you're going to kind of have different slices and everything like that. This is going to be a bit more dynamic, which I kind of like. I think that's cool. It's like, oh, okay, renders is a very deep, inky, high contrast black dial. Boom. Anthracite gray, still very legible, but it's only in a very particular angle. So you can just go on off with that. And if you're not liking this and it's washed out to you, boom, you don't have to move very much at all. So I don't know, there's something that I can appreciate about that. And again, it's something just a little bit different, even though it just very geniusly stitches together so many other aspects and qualities that I've come to love within, you know, watch design as a whole. So guys, closing thoughts on the wrist: great proportions, very comfortable and balanced wear. This feels very refined for a $700 watch. In terms of model variants, this is the pitch black dial as seen. There's also a Highland Amber, which is a golden yellow, and then there's also a spin drift model, which is the full loom white dial. Very cool. And a Ridgeline, which is a tricolor variation, which I think is very cool and will probably be also, I think, pretty popular because people are always wanting something a little bit more fun and a little bit more different. For me, the black and the white, oh gosh, these are nice. Of course, I also think that golden yellow, very popular right now. Not necessarily for me. I think maybe my skin is too close to golden. But for me, yeah, this black dial, man, it does it. I'm really, I was hoping they would send the white dial, but the black dial, I have to say, it's really won me over. So, of course, comparable models, guys. Yeah, Traska Summiteer meets Halios Universa all the way, and that is some great company to be in because those are highly desirable and collectible watches. Guys, when I go to my local watch events and, you know, collector gatherings, as much as, you know, I want people to look at whatever significant vintage reissue Seiko or whatever, people really gravitate towards these little independent micro brands that are so hard to ever see in the metal and find and hold, and they're always just so blown away with them. And I feel like this beautiful Clemence watch is going to fall right into that. Like, I hope to own one so that I can parade it around as well and get other folks to get on board with giving these smaller brands a chance. So guys, for me, bottom line, this is the first Clemence watch I've experienced, and I'm really very impressed. While this watch does have to contend with some other strong model offerings within this very popular space, it manages to jump right in and slot itself itself next to some of the very best this segment has to offer, and I think that's very admirable. So with that said, let me know what you all think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do hit like, and if you're already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.